My greedy mother-in-law demanded an extra $5,000 for shopping. I refused, and she hit me hard with a baseball bat. I dropped to the floor while my husband just stood there, watching this drama unfold and not stopping his mother. I was filled with anger. That night, I left the house, determined to seek revenge. The next morning, when they woke up, I had a big shocking surprise waiting for them. My name is Lisa, and I want to share my story. A story that began in a world filled with dreams, but quickly spiraled into a nightmare. At 29 years old, I was an online entrepreneur living in Dallas, Texas, thriving in the digital marketplace and earning about $30,000 a month. To outsiders, my life might have looked enviable. I worked from home, setting my own hours, and enjoyed the fruits of my labor. But behind closed doors, I was struggling in a toxic marriage to my husband, Ryan, and his controlling mother, Evelyn. It all started with Ryan. We met in college, both ambitious and full of hope. We shared dreams of success, and for a while, it felt like we could conquer the world together. We married 3 years ago, thinking love would see us through anything. But as the months rolled on, reality set in. Ryan lost his job about 8 months ago, and that's when everything began to unravel. At first, I didn't mind supporting us. After all, I had built my business from the ground up, but the weight of responsibility started to feel like a mountain on my shoulders. I worked harder to make sure our bills were paid, the mortgage was covered, and groceries were stocked. Yet, instead of gratitude, I faced demands. Evelyn, Ryan's mother, was always hovering nearby, her eyes glinting with greed. In her late 50s, she had her own ideas about how I should spend my money. She never missed an opportunity to remind me of my duty as a daughter-in-law. "You're doing so well, Lisa," she would say, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Surely, you can spare a little more for family." The first time she asked for money, it was a few $100s to cover her luxury trip to a resort. I hesitated, but Ryan encouraged me to help her out. "It's just a little something to make her happy," he said, his eyes pleading. I relented, thinking it was harmless. But after that, it was never-ending. Evelyn's demands became more outrageous over time. One evening, she called me into the living room. "Lisa, we need to talk," she began, her tones serious. "I've been thinking about my wardrobe, and it's looking a bit shabby. I need at least $5,000 for a shopping spree. You can afford it." I froze, my heart racing. "Evelyn, I'm already covering everything. The mortgage, utilities, groceries, all of it comes from my income," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "I can't just keep giving you money for luxuries." Her expression twisted into one of contempt. "You think just because you earn a little that you can ignore your responsibilities? This is your family too, Lisa." Her words cut deeper than I cared to admit. "Family? You mean the family that doesn't contribute anything to the household?" I shot back, my patience wearing thin. I expected Ryan to step in, to defend me, but he remained silent, his gaze cast down. The silence felt like betrayal. In that moment, the tension in the room snapped. Evelyn stood up, her frustration boiling over. "If you can't help, then maybe you should just get out of this family," she yelled, her face flushed with anger. "Maybe you should talk to Ryan about contributing." I shouted back, feeling a rush of defiance. Her eyes narrowed, and in a fit of rage, she picked up a baseball bat that was leaning against the wall. Before I could react, she hurled it toward me. I barely had time to flinch before it struck me in the face, the pain radiating through my entire body. I stumbled back, clutching my cheek, as tears of shock filled my eyes. "What the hell, Evelyn?" I gasped, trying to catch my breath. I looked to Ryan, desperate for him to intervene, but he stood frozen, watching the scene unfold as if it were a reality show he couldn't change. My heart sank deeper. I realized in that moment that I was truly alone. "You're ungrateful," Evelyn screamed, her voice echoing in the room. "You think you can just take without giving anything back? You don't belong here." It was a turning point, the moment I understood the depth of their manipulation. I felt a mix of rage and despair as I staggered back, the pain in my face overshadowed by the hurt in my heart. I couldn't believe I had let things escalate this far. That night, I packed my bags. I didn't care that Ryan wasn't home. He had gone out with friends, leaving me to fend for myself. I gathered my belongings, determined to reclaim my life, even if it meant returning to my parents' house. As I drove away, tears streaming down my cheeks, I felt a strange sense of relief wash over me. It was as if I had finally broken free from unseen chains. But along with that relief came a simmering anger, a desire for revenge. In the days that followed, I stayed at my parents' house, contemplating my next move. I knew I had to file for divorce. I was done living under the control of Ryan and his mother. I was tired of being treated like a bank instead of a partner. My resolve hardened as I thought of Evelyn's cruel words and Ryan's betrayal. I could see them coming back, begging me to return. I imagined Ryan, looking for sympathy as he promised to change, and Evelyn, all sweetness and light, pretending nothing had happened. I wouldn't fall for it again. But I had a plan. I needed to take control of the situation. If they wanted me back, they would have to pay for it. The thought of making them transfer ownership of the house into my name danced in my mind. It was a risky move, but I was done being the victim. As I plotted my revenge, I couldn't help but feel a mix of dread and excitement. I had a long way to go, but I was determined to reclaim my life and my worth. And I was ready to face whatever came next. Little did I know the battle was just beginning. Days turned into a week after I left, and the initial pain of my departure began to fade, replaced by a fierce determination. I was ready to take control of my life. My parents were supportive, offering me comfort and encouragement, reminding me that I deserved to be happy. They saw the bruises, not just on my face but on my spirit. One evening, as I was sitting at my parents' kitchen table, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen to see Ryan's name flashing. My heart raced. I hadn't spoken to him since the night I left. I hesitated for a moment, but curiosity got the better of me. I answered. "Lisa?" Ryan's voice sounded small, almost defeated. "Can we talk?"
Why?
"So you can convince me to come back." I shot back, trying to keep my anger in check. "No, it's not like that. I want to apologize. I didn't know what to do that night. Mom, I never thought she would go that far." His words trailed off, and I could hear the guilt in his voice. "Really, Ryan? You didn't know?" "You stood there and watched while she attacked me." I felt the heat rising in my chest. "You didn't lift a finger to help me?" "I'm sorry." I was shocked. I thought it would calm her down if I didn't say anything. His excuse fell flat, and I could feel my patience wearing thin. "Save it, Ryan. I don't want to hear your excuses. I'm done with this." I hung up, the familiar sense of betrayal creeping back. Over the next few days, I felt a mix of emotions: anger, frustration, and determination.
I knew I had to take the next step.
I spoke with a lawyer about filing for divorce, laying out my plans to ensure that I would not be taken advantage of any longer. My lawyer explained the process and advised me to gather financial documents and evidence of my income. The thought of facing Ryan and Evelyn again sent shivers down my spine, but I was resolute. That Friday, I received an unexpected visitor. As I was watching television, my mom came into the living room with a concerned expression. "Lisa, someone's at the door for you," she said hesitantly. My heart sank. I knew who it was before I even opened the door. When I did, there stood Ryan and Evelyn, looking uncharacteristically subdued. "Can we come in?" Ryan asked, glancing at Evelyn, who wore a tight-lipped expression. I stepped aside, not because I wanted to, but because my curiosity was piqued. They walked in, and I could feel the tension in the air.
"What do you want?"
I demanded, trying to keep my voice steady. "Lisa, we're here to talk about what happened," Ryan began. Evelyn chimed in. "I've come to apologize as well. I acted terribly, and I understand that you were hurt. We just want to work this out." Her tone was softer than usual, but I could still detect an undertone of manipulation. "Work what out? You mean continue to take from me?" I crossed my arms, leaning against the doorframe. "We realize now that we were wrong." "I shouldn't have thrown the bat," Evelyn said, forcing a smile. "I was under a lot of stress." But we're family, and family should support each other. Support? You've done nothing but take and demand. Family doesn't treat each other like this. I felt the anger boiling inside me. I'm not going back to that life. I'm filing for divorce. Ryan's expression shifted from confusion to panic. You don't have to do that, Lisa. We can make changes. Just give me a chance. Changes? Like what? You standing idly by while your mother bullies me? I shook my head, feeling the weight of my decision solidify. Please, just hear us out. We'll do better, Ryan pleaded, desperation in his voice. Evelyn added, What do you want, Lisa? Just name it, and we can figure something out. I hesitated. There was a part of me that wanted to lash out, but there was another part that was calculating, ready to seize the moment. If you want me back, you need to transfer the house into my name. That's the only way I'll even consider it. Silence filled the room as they processed my words. Ryan glanced at his mother, and I could see the gears turning in his mind. They exchanged a look, one that screamed of desperation and panic. Are you serious? Ryan asked, disbelief in his voice. I've never been more serious, I replied firmly. You either want me back or you don't. Evelyn's face twisted into a mask of anger, but I could also see a glimmer of fear. You can't be serious, Lisa. You're asking for too much. No, I shot back. You're the ones who have taken too much for too long. After what felt like an eternity, Ryan sighed, defeated. Okay, we'll do it. We'll transfer the house to you. Just please, don't file for divorce. Evelyn didn't look pleased, but she nodded, clearly realizing that she had little choice.
Fine.
Let's just get this done. As they left, I felt a mix of triumph and unease. I had them right where I wanted them, but I also knew this was just the beginning. The battle for my independence was far from over, and the true extent of their manipulation would soon be revealed. I was ready to fight, but I could still feel the weight of their betrayal pressing down on me. The next steps would be crucial, and I needed to stay strong. With a newfound sense of purpose, I began to prepare for the changes ahead, knowing that the final act of reclaiming my life was yet to come. After that tense confrontation, the atmosphere shifted in my life. I was filled with a mixture of hope and caution as I prepared for the transfer of the house into my name. I needed to ensure that every detail was handled correctly. This was my chance to reclaim my independence and finally escape the grip of Ryan and Evelyn. The following week, Ryan and Evelyn returned to my parents' house, bringing with them a set of legal documents. I examined the papers carefully, heart pounding with anticipation. This was it, the moment I could turn the tables on them. Here's the paperwork, Ryan said, his tone serious as he laid the documents on the table. You just need to sign here, and the house will be yours. He looked at me with a mix of hope and apprehension, as if he were unsure how I would react. I picked up the pen, hesitating just for a moment. You do realize what this means, right? I asked, locking eyes with Ryan. This isn't just about the house. This is me taking my life back. Evelyn stepped forward, her expression darkening. You're being foolish, Lisa. You're throwing away your family for a piece of property. Family? I laughed bitterly. You've treated me like a financial burden, not a family member. This is about self-respect and independence. With that, I signed the documents. A rush of adrenaline surged through me as I felt the power shift. The house was now legally mine, and for the first time, I felt like I was taking control of my destiny. Once the paperwork was complete, Ryan's demeanor shifted. His earlier desperation gave way to something darker, almost threatening. You think you can just walk away? You don't know what you're getting into, he warned, his voice low. What are you saying? I asked, alarmed. Things are different now, Lisa. You're making a big mistake, Ryan replied, a chilling smile creeping onto his face. Evelyn jumped in, trying to regain control of the situation. This isn't just about you anymore. We're family. You'll regret this. But I was done listening to their threats. I stood tall, my resolve unwavering. I won't regret taking my life back. This is the last time I'll let you manipulate me. As they left, the tension hung in the air like a storm cloud, heavy and foreboding. I was relieved yet anxious, knowing that I had only begun to fight the battle for my independence. The next few days passed slowly as I settled into my new reality. I had a sense of freedom I hadn't felt in a long time, but it was tinged with uncertainty. I filed for divorce, gathering my thoughts and preparing for what I knew would be a tumultuous legal battle. I was ready to face whatever came my way. Ryan and Evelyn would not take this from me. They had manipulated me for too long, and now it was my turn to take charge. I couldn't shake the feeling that they would come back, desperate to reclaim their control. I was prepared for their attempts to regain their grip on my life. Whatever games they played, I was ready to outsmart them. As I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, I felt a mix of emotions swirling inside me. I had taken a bold step toward my independence, but the consequences were still looming ahead. I knew the road wouldn't be easy, but I had faith in my ability to fight for my future. The battle was just beginning, and I was determined to emerge victorious, no matter what it took. With the house now officially mine and the divorce papers filed, I felt an exhilarating rush of power. But the calm before the storm was all too palpable. I knew Ryan and Evelyn wouldn't take this lying down. As the days passed, I prepared myself for the inevitable confrontation, mentally rehearsing my lines and reminding myself of my worth. A week later, I received an unexpected phone call. It was Ryan again. I took a deep breath before answering, steeling myself for whatever he had to say. "Lisa, we need to talk," he began, his voice lacking its usual bravado. "I don't think you understand the situation." "Enlighten me," I replied, keeping my tone firm. I just think you should reconsider the divorce. This isn't just about the house. It's about our future together," he said, desperation creeping into his voice. "Future? Ryan, you made your choice when you stood by while your mother abused me. There's no going back now," I said, my heart racing. "Evelyn is worried about you. She doesn't want to lose her family," he pleaded, but I could hear the underlying thread in his words. "Family? You mean the family that treats me like a financial source? I'm done with all of that. I'm taking my life back," I asserted, feeling the weight of my words. I ended the call, but the anxiety remained. That evening, I decided to go for a walk to clear my head. As I strolled through the quiet neighborhood, I couldn't shake the feeling that they would strike back. And sure enough, the very next day, they showed up at my parents' house, their faces twisted with anger and desperation. "Lisa," Evelyn shouted as soon as I opened the door. "You can't just do this. You're making a terrible mistake." "Making a mistake? I think it's you two who are mistaken if you think I'll go back to that life," I replied, feeling a surge of defiance. Ryan stepped forward, his expression serious. "You don't know the implications of what you're doing. You think you can just walk away from us, from me? You have no idea what we're capable of." His words hung in the air, a chilling reminder of the lengths they would go to retain their control. But I stood my ground, my heart racing. "You underestimate me. I'm not afraid of you anymore." Evelyn's face contorted with rage. "You will regret this, Lisa. You think you've won, but this isn't over." I felt a shiver run down my spine, but I wasn't about to back down. "No, it's over. I refuse to let you manipulate me any longer. I'll fight for my happiness, with or without you." They left, but not without casting their threats. I could feel the darkness surrounding them, and it only fueled my resolve to push forward. I was done being their victim. A few weeks later, the court date for my divorce arrived. My heart raced as I walked into the courtroom, ready to face the final chapter of this painful saga. I had gathered all the evidence I needed: texts, emails, and records of my financial contributions. I was ready to show the judge the truth of my situation. Ryan sat across from me, looking defeated yet dangerous. His mother's presence loomed behind him, a dark cloud that reminded me of the manipulation and control I had endured for far too long. As the proceedings began, I felt a wave of calm wash over me. This was my moment. As I presented my case, I could see Ryan squirming in his seat, his facade crumbling under the weight of the truth. The judge listened carefully to both sides, and I could sense the shift in the room as my evidence spoke louder than any of their lies. Finally, the judge delivered the verdict. Given the evidence presented and the circumstances of your marriage, I grant the divorce. Lisa, you are entitled to retain the house and any financial assets accrued during your marriage. A rush of relief washed over me, and I felt the weight of 1,000 chains shatter. I had done it. I was free. As I left the courthouse, I took a deep breath, ready to embrace the future. I knew there would still be challenges ahead, but for the first time in a long time, I felt hope. I had reclaimed my independence, my dignity, and most importantly, my self-worth. The betrayal and manipulation of my past would no longer define me. I was ready to move on and embrace a life filled with possibilities. The lessons I had learned would stay with me, guiding me as I stepped into a new chapter, one where I was in control of my destiny.